The first snowflakes of winter fluttered down upon Enchancia like tiny crystals of magic. The castle courtyard shimmered in white as Sofia stepped onto the balcony, her amulet gleaming softly against the pale sky. Below, servants strung garlands of silver bells and ribbons for the Royal Winter Festival, one of the grandest events of the year. Sofia smiled with delight. "It's so beautiful, Clover. The whole kingdom looks like it's made of snowflakes." Clover peeked out from a pile of blankets. "Beautiful? Maybe. Cold? Definitely." Sofia giggled, wrapping him tighter. "You're such a silly bunny." Just then, Bailiwick appeared in the corridor below. "Your Highness, His Majesty requests your presence in the ballroom for an important announcement." Sofia hurried down, her boots crunching softly against the marble. Inside the grand ballroom, King Roland, Queen Miranda, Amber James, and several royal students from the Flying Derby Academy had gathered, including a familiar face, Prince Hugo. The king cleared his throat. This year's Winter Festival will include something very special, the Royal Ice Dancing Exhibition. Each participant will perform in pairs. The event will celebrate friendship, grace, and teamwork. Amber clapped her hands in excitement. "Oh, how marvelous! I've always wanted to perform in a grand winter dance." James whispered to Sofia with a grin, "I'll stick to sledding." Sofia smiled. She loved skating, but she had never tried ice dancing. It sounded thrilling and a little scary. Then came the surprise. "And this year," King Roland continued, "we like our young royals to be paired at random to encourage new friendships." Bailiwick held up a velvet bag filled with scrolls. One by one, names were drawn. When Sofia's turn came, she took a deep breath and unfolded her scroll. It read, Prince Hugo. Hugo's scroll read the same. The entire room went quiet. Sofia blinked. "Hugo? Me?" Hugo crossed his arms. "You got to be kidding. You and me ice dancing." Amber gasped. "Oh, dear, this should be interesting." Queen Miranda smiled kindly. "I think it's a wonderful match. You two already learned to work together once before in Flying Derby, didn't you?" Sofia hesitated, remembering their rocky start, and how they'd eventually become friends after learning to trust each other. "Well, yes, we did." Hugo sighed dramatically. "Fine, but don't expect me to wear sparkly costumes or anything." Sofia grinned. "No promises." The announcement ended with cheerful applause, but as the crowd dispersed, Sofia could sense Hugo's uncertainty. He lingered by the door, staring at the frozen lake outside. "Hugo," she said softly, walking over, "we can do this. Ice dancing is about teamwork, and we've done that before." He looked at her, a bit embarrassed. "Yeah, but dancing's not exactly my thing." Sofia smiled gently. "It doesn't have to be about being perfect. It's about having fun and doing your best together." For a moment, the prince's usual confidence wavered, replaced by something more honest. "All right, Princess, let's give it a shot." As they shook hands, the snow outside began to fall heavier, swirling like 1,000 tiny stars. Unbeknownst to them, their partnership would soon lead not just to a royal performance, but to one of the most magical adventures either of them had ever known. Clover peeked out from the balcony railing, muttering to himself, "I've got a bad feeling about this ice idea. I just hope there's hot cocoa involved." Sofia laughed, looking at the falling snow. "Oh, Clover, it's going to be wonderful." And as the castle bells chimed in the distance, Sofia felt a flicker of excitement in her heart. For winter had brought not just snow, but the beginning of something beautiful. The next morning, the castle courtyard sparkled under a golden winter sun. The grand frozen lake had been cleared and polished into a shimmering rink that stretched as far as Sofia could see. Flags of Enchancia fluttered proudly along the edges, and the scent of hot cocoa filled the air. Sofia tugged on her lilac skating outfit and wrapped her scarf snugly around her neck. "Come on, Clover. It's time for our first practice," she said cheerfully. Clover peeked out from his warm pouch. "You sure about this? Ice and I don't mix. I prefer solid ground. Thank you very much." Sofia giggled. "You can watch from the sidelines." When she reached the rink, she found Hugo already there, skates laced, arms crossed, and wearing an expression that said, "I'm only doing this because I have to." "Morning, partner." Sofia greeted with a bright smile. Hugo smirked. "Let's just get this over with. Princess, the sooner we start, the sooner we fall." Sofia gave him a patient look. "We're not going to fall. Well, not too much." They stepped onto the ice. The surface gleamed like glass, and Sofia felt that familiar thrill of gliding. She pushed off gracefully, twirling once before turning to Hugo. "See? It's easy." Hugo took one step, then another, and suddenly his feet slipped out from under him. With a loud thud, he landed flat on his back. Clover burst out laughing from the edge of the lake. "You call that easy?" Sofia rushed over, trying not to giggle. "Are you okay?" Hugo groaned, rubbing his elbow. "I'm fine. Just testing gravity." They spent the next hour trying basic moves, holding hands, gliding in unison, even attempting a simple spin. But each time they tried, Hugo either lost his balance or went too fast. Sofia stayed patient, offering gentle tips. "Try to relax," she said. "You're skating like you're still riding your flying derby horse." "I am relaxed." Hugo protested, right before he crashed into a snowbank. Sofia couldn't help laughing this time. "Okay, maybe a little less competitive energy." Hugo stood up, brushing snow off his jacket. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Maybe a little," Sofia said with a playful grin. After several attempts, something began to change. Hugo's movements grew smoother, his confidence returning. He stopped fighting the ice and started gliding with it. When Sofia reached out her hand, he took it without hesitation. "Let's try again," she said softly. This time, together, their blades skimmed across the surface in perfect rhythm. Left, right glide. For a moment, it felt like they were floating. The crisp air brushed against their cheeks, and the music from the castle's band drifted faintly through the cold. "Hey," Hugo said quietly, "this isn't half bad." Sofia smiled. "Told you." Then, in a burst of confidence, Hugo tried to lift Sofia into a spin, just like he'd seen in the festival poster. But the timing was off, and both tumbled into a pile of snow with a loud whoosh. Sofia sat up, brushing frost from her hair. That was almost perfect. Hugo groaned, then started laughing. A Rayall laugh this time. "You mean perfectly terrible?" They laughed together until their sides hurt. It was the first time all morning that the air between them felt light. As the sun dipped low, painting the ice in golden hues, Sofia glanced at Hugo and said, "You know, we might actually make a good team." Hugo smiled faintly. "Maybe you're right, Princess. Maybe." From the snowy hill, Clover muttered, "If falling counts as teamwork, you two are champions." The pair laughed again, helping each other up, and as they skated one last round before sunset, the tension that once existed between them began to melt away, replaced by something new. It wasn't just friendship yet, but it was the start of it. And as Sofia's amulet glimmered softly in the twilight, she couldn't help but feel that this icy adventure was leading them towards something truly magical. 2 days later, the castle was buzzing with excitement. Every royal student in Enchancia, and even some from neighboring kingdoms, had gathered for the official festival practice week. The lake had been turned into a breathtaking arena, surrounded by banners, musicians, and warm lanterns that glowed like tiny stars against the snow. Sofia and Hugo arrived early for their session, both feeling more confident after their first few days of practice. Hugo had stopped falling every 5 minutes, and Sofia had perfected her graceful spins. They had even started to laugh more than they argued. Everything was going perfectly, until the sound of confident laughter echoed across the rink. "Ah, if it isn't Princess Sofia and, oh, Prince Hugo," said Princess Hildegard, gliding toward them like a swan. She wore a dazzling icy blue skating outfit with glittering silver trim, and behind her followed Prince Desmond, looking slightly nervous but doing his best to keep up. Sofia smiled politely. "Hi, Hildegard. Hi, Desmond. Are you two partners for the festival?" "Of course," Hildegard replied, tossing her hair dramatically. "Prince Desmond and I have been practicing daily with a royal skating instructor from the Winterlands. We're planning a performance that will be the highlight of the festival." Desmond nodded awkwardly. "She's very determined." Hildegard turned to Sofia and Hugo. smirking. And you too? Practicing on your own, I presume? That's brave. Hugo raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing, she said sweetly. It's just, some dances take more than enthusiasm. They take elegance, skill, and coordination. You'll understand when you see our routine. Sofia tried to keep her composure, but she could tell Hugo was bristling. We'll do just fine, Hildegard, Sofia said calmly. Good luck, Hildegard added with a wink. You'll need it. As she glided away, Hugo muttered, Can you believe her? Acting like she's already won. Sofia sighed. Hildegard can be confident, but we can't let it get to us. Oh, it's getting to me, Hugo said, crossing his arms. We need to prove her wrong. That's when the trouble began. Fueled by determination, Hugo pushed their practice harder than ever. Again, he said after each routine. Faster, spin higher. Sofia tried to keep up, but soon her legs ached and her balance wavered. Hugo, maybe we should take a break. No time, he insisted. We need to make it perfect. They attempted a double spin. Hugo lifted her into the air, but his grip slipped, sending them both tumbling onto the ice. Ouch! Sofia gasped, rubbing her knee. Sorry, Hugo muttered, clearly frustrated. But not at her. I just want to be good at this. Sofia looked at him gently. You are good at this, but you're trying so hard to win that you're forgetting what makes it fun. He looked away. You don't get it. Everyone expects me to be good at sports, not dancing. If we mess up, it's on me. Sofia's eyes softened. I do get it. People used to think I didn't belong at royal events because I wasn't born a princess. But I learned that being royal isn't about being perfect. It's about being true to yourself and kind to others. Hugo let out a slow breath. You always have the right words, don't you? Sofia smiled. Not always, but I believe in you. And I know we can do this together. The tension melted between them like frost under sunlight. They stood up, brushed off the snow, and started again, this time slower, with laughter between every glide and every stumble. Nearby, Hildegard watched from the edge of the rink, frowning slightly. They're better than I thought. Desmond smiled shyly. They look happy. Hildegard huffed. Happiness doesn't win competitions. But Sofia and Hugo weren't thinking about winning anymore. They were thinking about rhythm, teamwork, and the joy of dancing beneath the winter sky. And as their skates traced loops of silver light across the ice, the crowd watching them began to smile, because this was more than a dance. It was the beginning of a true royal partnership. The next morning, Enchancia Castle looked like a dream. Frosted branches shimmered in the sunlight. Icicles sparkled from every tower, and the royal lake gleamed like a mirror. The big festival rehearsal day had finally arrived, and Sofia felt both excited and nervous. She twirled once before the mirror, adjusting the lilac ribbon in her hair. All right, Clover, she said with a determined smile. Today's the day, Hugo, and I show everyone what we can do. Clover yawned, peeking from a cozy blanket. You sure you don't need a backup bunny in case you fall on your royal tush? Sofia laughed. I think we practice enough not to fall. Well, not too much. Meanwhile, outside on the rink, Hugo was already warming up. His breath formed little clouds in the chilly air as he practiced sharp turns and glides. Despite his playful confidence, there was something different about him today, a quiet determination. When Sofia arrived, Hugo grinned. Ready to wow the crowd, princess? Only if we wow them together, she replied warmly. As the other pairs practiced around them, Hildegard and Desmond with perfect precision, Amber performing elegant twirls with her partner Cleo. Sofia and Hugo took their place at the center of the ice. Music began to play. They started slowly, gliding in sync, their hands linked as they spun in wide, graceful arcs. The crowd clapped in rhythm, and for a while it seemed nothing could go wrong, until a sudden gust of icy wind swept across the lake. Whoa! Hugo shouted as the wind nearly knocked him off balance. The sky darkened. Snow began to swirl faster and faster, turning into a full-blown snowstorm. The musicians stopped playing. Gasps echoed from the crowd. King Roland stood from his royal box. What in Enchancia is happening? Sofia looked around in alarm. The storm wasn't natural, it was enchanted. She could feel her amulet glowing faintly beneath her dress. Then, with a burst of light, a voice echoed from the swirling clouds above. Who dares disturb my winter rest? A shimmering figure formed in the air, tall, elegant, and surrounded by frost. It was a snow sprite of the north, an ancient winter spirit from Enchancia legends. Her gown flowed like snowdrifts, and her eyes glimmered like ice crystals. Sofia gasped, "The snow sprite. She's real." Hugo blinked. That's great. But can she not destroy the lake?" The snow sprite's voice was calm but powerful. "This festival has awoken my realm's energy. I sense imbalance, laughter mixed with rivalry, pride mixed with fear." Her gaze fell on Hildegard and Hugo. The hearts of the dancers are not in harmony. Sofia stepped forward bravely. "Please, Your Grace, we meant no harm. We were only practicing for the royal ice dance." The sprite studied her for a long moment. Then, with a slow wave of her hand, she said, "If you wish to calm this storm, you must prove your hearts are united. Dance not for applause, but for friendship." And with that, the snow grew heavier, blinding, swirling around them. Sofia could barely see Hugo beside her. He reached for her hand. "What do we do?" Sofia's voice trembled slightly. "We dance." Together they began to move, guided by instinct and trust. They couldn't see the rink or the crowd, only each other. Their blades traced patterns through the snow as they spun and glided, every movement syncing perfectly. The storm began to slow. The wind softened, turning into gentle flakes that drifted like feathers. The snow sprite's voice returned, softer now. "Yes, that is the harmony I sought." Light surrounded them, warm and golden. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the snowstorm vanished. The crowd erupted in applause, but Sofia and Hugo just looked at each other, breathless and smiling. "We did it," Hugo said, his voice full of awe. Sofia nodded. Together, the snow sprite smiled faintly before fading into mist. "Remember this. True grace comes not from the steps you take, but the heart you share." And as her final words echoed through the crisp air, a single snowflake landed on Sofia's amulet, shimmering like starlight before melting into warmth. Clover popped his head out from the snowbank nearby. "Well, that was definitely not in the rehearsal plan." Sofia laughed, still holding Hugo's hand. "Maybe not, but it was magical." The morning after the snow sprite's mysterious visit, Enchancia Castle awoke to a calm, clear sky. The snow glistened in the soft light, and everything looked peaceful once more. Yet inside the great ballroom, two young royals sat quietly, deep in thought. Sofia and Hugo hadn't spoken much since the storm. They both knew it had been magical, even miraculous, but it had also shaken them. What had the snow sprite truly meant when she said their hearts were not in harmony? Sofia stared at her reflection in the icy window pane. "She was right," she said softly. "I think we were trying too hard to win, instead of just dancing for joy." Hugo leaned against the wall, arms crossed, frowning slightly. "Maybe, but Hildegard was acting like she already had the crown. I just wanted to show her we could be better." Sofia turned to face him. "That's just it, Hugo." The snow sprite could feel that. The rivalry, the pride. It made her magic unstable. We were letting competition come before friendship. Hugo kicked lightly at the rug. "You sound just like my mother. She's always telling me that being royal isn't about being the best. It's about being your best." Sofia smiled gently. "Your mother sounds very wise." He shrugged, a hint of a grin forming. "She'd say the same about you." There was a comfortable silence between them, the kind that only forms when two people have finally started to understand each other. Then Sofia stood and picked up her skates. "Come on," she said brightly. "We're going skating." Hugo blinked. "Now, there's no rehearsal today." "I know," Sofia said, smiling. "We're not rehearsing. We're dancing." Down at the frozen lake, the world was hushed and still. The snow sparkled like diamonds under the sunlight. Sofia took Hugo's hand without a word, and together they stepped onto the ice. No audience, No music, no competition. Just the two of them, gliding, laughing, and letting their hearts lead. "Watch this," Hugo said, trying a small spin. He wobbled, nearly fell, and caught himself with a laugh. Sofia giggled. "You're getting better." "Yeah," he said, smiling. "Maybe I just needed the right partner." Sofia's cheeks flushed pink, and she twirled gracefully. "Now that's a Hugo I remember, confident, but not cocky." He laughed. "No promises, princess." They skated for what felt like hours, learning to move as one. Sometimes Sofia led, sometimes Hugo did. They didn't need words. Every step, every glide, every spin was guided by trust. At one point, Sofia stopped and looked around the sparkling lake. "It's funny," she said softly. "When I first came to the castle, I never thought I'd be doing something like this. I used to think being royal meant always knowing what to do, being perfect all the time. And now," Hugo asked. Sofia smiled. "Now I know it's about learning and helping each other grow." Hugo nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You've helped me grow too, Sofia. I guess I never thanked you for that." She tilted her head. "You just did." From the shore, Clover, Robin, and Mia watched the two skaters twirl across the ice like snowflakes in a dance of their own. "Well, look at that," Clover said, impressed. "The prince can skate without breaking something." Robin chirped. "They look happy." "They look connected," Mia added softly. When the sun began to set, Sofia and Hugo glided to a stop in the center of the lake. The fading light painted the snow in gold and pink, and their reflections shimmered on the ice below. Sofia looked at Hugo, her eyes warm. "Whatever happens at the festival tomorrow, thank you for being my partner." He smiled back. "You're welcome, princess. And same to you." The moment was quiet, simple, and perfect. And though neither of them said it aloud, they both knew this wasn't just about ice dancing anymore. It was about friendship, respect, and the kind of magic that only comes from believing in one another. The morning of the Royal Winter Festival dawned bright and beautiful. Sunlight danced across the snow, and the castle sparkled like a jewel beneath the clear blue sky. The frozen lake had been transformed into a grand stage, decorated with glistening icicles, velvet banners, and floating lanterns that shimmered like little stars above the ice. Trumpets echoed through the courtyard as guests from kingdoms near and far arrived. Carriages lined the castle road, and laughter filled the air. The royal ice dancing exhibition was a highlight of the festival, and everyone was eager to see what the young royals had prepared. In a cozy dressing tent beside the rink, Sofia adjusted the silver tiara in her hair. Her gown was a soft lavender with snowflake embroidery, sparkling whenever she moved. Hugo stood nearby in his formal royal attire, white and navy with a crest of Enchancia stitched on the chest. He gave a small whistle. "You look, very princessy," he said awkwardly. Sofia smiled. "And you look quite princely yourself." Clover poked his head out from under the chair. "Break a skate out there, kiddo." "Thanks, Clover," Sofia giggled. "I think you mean break a leg." "Why would anyone want to break a leg?" the bunny muttered. "Human traditions make no sense." Bailiwick entered with scroll in hand. "Their majesties are ready, your highnesses. You're forth to perform." Sofia and Hugo exchanged a nervous glance. "Fourth," Hugo said. Just enough time to watch the others. They stepped outside and watched as Princess Hildegard and Prince Desmond glided elegantly across the ice. Their movements were precise and flawless. Every turn practiced to perfection. The crowd applauded wildly when they finished with a perfect synchronized spin. "Wow!" Sofia whispered. "They really are good." Hugo crossed his arms. "We can be good too, in our own way." Next came Amber and Cleo, their performance full of glittering twirls and elegant poses. Even James, sitting in the stands, shouted, "Go, Amber!" Then Bailiwick's voice rang out. "Now presenting Princess Sofia of Enchancia and Prince Hugo of Wintercrest." The crowd clapped as the two stepped onto the ice. The music began, soft and graceful at first, like the falling snow. Sofia took a deep breath. "Ready?" she whispered. Hugo nodded. "Let's do this." They started slowly, matching each other's movements perfectly. gliding, spinning, twirling in unison. Every motion felt natural, every step in harmony. The practice, the patience, and the friendship they had built were shining through in every moment. Halfway through performance, the music swelled. Sofia twirled into Hugo's arms, and he lifted her gently into the air. For a heartbeat, it felt like she was flying. The crowd gasped in awe as she spun above him, her gown catching the light like falling snow. When he set her down, they skated side by side, faster, stronger, and completely in sync. Their final move came with perfect timing, a spin that ended in a graceful bow before the royal family. Silence fell for a second, then thunderous applause erupted across the courtyard. Amber jumped to her feet. "That was amazing," she cheered. Even Hildegard, though trying to hide it, clapped politely. "Not bad," she said under her breath. King Roland stood proudly. "Wonderful performance, Sofia. Splendid teamwork, Prince Hugo." Queen Miranda's eyes sparkled. "You two made it look effortless." Hugo smiled, panting slightly. "We didn't just dance, we flew." Sofia beamed, her cheeks glowing. "We did, didn't we?" The judges announced that the royal audience would vote for their favorite pair after all performances. But Sofia wasn't thinking about trophies or ribbons anymore. As they left the rink, she looked at Hugo and said softly, "No matter what happens, I'm really proud of us." He grinned. "Me too. Guess we make a good team after all." Clover hopped up onto the bench beside them. "A good team? You two were like snow and sparkle out there. Now about that promise, Coco." They laughed together as the music faded and the next pair took the stage. For Sofia, it didn't matter who won. The real victory was the friendship she and Hugo had built along the way. Above them, the sunlight caught on a flake of ice that shimmered just like her amulet, as if the snow sprite herself was smiling down in approval. As the winter sun began to dip below the snowy hills of Enchancia, the royal winter festival drew to a glittering close. The air was filled with excitement, music, and the joyful chatter of guests. The lanterns around the lake flickered like golden stars, and the sound of laughter drifted through the crisp evening air. Sofia and Hugo stood together near the edge of the ice, still catching their breath from their performance. The applause had finally quieted, but the warmth of it still lingered in Sofia's heart. "Do you think we'll win?" Hugo asked, trying to sound casual. Sofia smiled. "Maybe, but I don't think that's what matters most anymore." He chuckled softly. "Yeah, I figured you'd say that." Just then, Bailiwick approached, bowing politely. "Your Majesties are ready to announce the results." The royal family took their place on the grand balcony overlooking the rink. King Roland stood tall, his voice booming across the festival grounds. "My dear guests, tonight's performances were extraordinary. Every pair skated with grace, courage, and joy, qualities that make Enchancia proud." Queen Miranda added, "But one pair reminded us that true greatness lies not in perfection, but in unity and kindness." Amber leaned toward Sofia and whispered, "That sounds like you." King Roland raised his hand. "And so, this year's royal ice dancing honor goes to Princess Sofia of Enchancia and Prince Hugo of Wintercrest." The crowd erupted in applause. Trumpets sounded, confetti fluttered down, and fireworks burst in the sky. Hugo blinked in surprise. We actually won?" Sofia laughed joyfully. "We did." Clover pumped his paw in the air. "That's my princess." They skated to the center of the ice, bowing before the king and queen as a shimmering trophy was presented to them, shaped like two snowflakes intertwined. But just as the applause began to fade, a soft, cold wind brushed through the air. The lanterns flickered, and a swirl of snow formed above the lake. Sofia gasped. The snow sprite. From the sparkling mist appeared the same graceful spirit who had tested them days before. Her voice rang like chimes of wind. "You have done well, young royals. You danced with hearts united, not for praise, but for friendship." The crowd watched in awe as the snow sprite floated gracefully above Sofia and Hugo. "You have brought warmth to my winter and light to the hearts of many. For this, I offer you a gift." She reached out, and two small snowflakes of light drifted into their hands. They glowed softly before merging into Sofia's amulet, which shimmered brighter than ever before. Sofia whispered, Thank you, Your Grace. The sprite smiled gently. May you always remember, the greatest magic is not found in spells or jewels, but in the bonds we share. Then, like falling snow, she disappeared into the wind. The audience stood in silence for a moment before breaking into joyful cheers once more. Hugo looked at Sofia, amazed. Did that really happen? Sofia smiled warmly. In Enchancia, magic always finds those who believe in it. As the music began again, Sofia and Hugo skated one last time. Not for competition, not for trophies, but simply for the joy of dancing together. Their movements were light, free, and full of laughter. Every spin, every glide shimmered with a glow of true friendship. When they finished, the crowd rose to their feet, once more, clapping and cheering. Amber rushed up to hug her sister. Sofia, that was the most magical thing I've ever seen. Sofia laughed. It was magical, wasn't it? Hugo smiled, bowing playfully. Until next winter, partner? Sofia curtsied. Definitely, partner. As the final fireworks painted the sky above Enchancia, Sofia looked out over the glowing castle, her heart full. She realized that sometimes magic wasn't just in amulets or spells. It was in courage, kindness, and the friendships that made every adventure truly unforgettable. And as snowflakes drifted gently through the air, she whispered softly, "Thank you, Snow Sprite, for reminding us what really matters." The last sparkle of light fell upon the lake, and the words, "the end," shimmered across the night sky, glowing like a memory that would stay in their hearts forever.